Episode 1 of This Is Going to Hurt begins with Junior Dr. Adam waking up in his car and realizing he's late for his shift. Adam is actually out in the parking lot, and we soon learn that he's working the labor ward. Before he can even get inside, he's stopped by a heavily pregnant woman outside. In fact, the arm is out already. As Adam begins talking to the camera, breaking the fourth wall, he finds himself in the maintenance lift and facing a real crisis, a cord prolapse. With Adam holding it in for now, there's an amusing undercurrent of humor as he's grilled by his boss, Mr. Lockhart, for turning up late and taking shortcuts with his work, even if it is through the maintenance lift. Tracy is head midwife here, and she oversees Adam's work as he heads in to see his next patient. She's 6 centimeters dilated, but an undercurrent of racism sees Adam jump in as a shining knight and hit back against her, threatening to kick them out if they continue. As Adam continues on through the day, he finds himself torn between his personal and professional life. Between text messages from Greg about a stag do and a wedding, which he's the best man for, and drama involving his partner Harry, and keeping their relationship from Adam's mum, Adam finds himself pushed from pillar to post round the hospital. One of the trainee doctors, Shruti, is a bit of a wallflower, but Adam promises to help teach her. He does just that, and she delivers her first baby, although also with a bit of a tear too. Adam isn't exactly happy, but Shruti is quick to apologize. Only, the irony here is that Adam is forced to apologize to the woman he called a racist earlier, before working overtime to do Lockhart's bidding and send some people home. There's a really nice vibe between Shruti and Adam, typified when the former is given her first cesarean to work on. It's a beautiful moment and one spoilt by our earlier racist patient calling Shruti a pocky. After another exhausting day, Adam nearly falls asleep at the wheel before eventually showing up at Greg's stag do. Unfortunately, Mr. Lockhart rings and confirms he needs to be on the night shift as there's been a cancellation. Adam promises Harry that it'll only be a couple of years until they move out and progress. It's clear this is taking its toll on his work. When Adam arrives, he's forced into emergency surgery with a patient he earlier sent home called Erica. It turns out her symptoms were nothing after all, and he's worried. Adam is forced into performing an emergency cesarean. Adam has never done a 25-week one, and this is a really risky procedure. Adam passes over the tiny baby, but the patient is losing a lot of blood. Adam is worried and it soon sees Lockhart arrive to take over, a puddle of blood on the floor around them. Adam made a bad call earlier on, but Lockhart encourages him to let it go. He's going to take the blame for this. News of the incident spreads across the hospital though, with Adam noticing that Erica is recovering, despite a lot of blood loss, and the baby is okay as well. Adam heads in and apologizes to the babe in secret. With a hellacious shift over, Adam catches up with the stag party long into the early hours, where he finds the group still drinking and at a strip club. As he collapses from exhaustion, sleeping on the sofa there, memories of the night flash back like a bad. Episode 2 of This Is Going to Hurt begins with Adam still reeling from his big mistake. Unfortunately, the gang have lost a swab during another cesarean, and they need to search inside the patient. Thankfully, Adam is saved at the last second by Tracy showing back up with the baby, who happens to have the swabs there. Phew. Despite making it back to his apartment, Adam is wired and struggles to sleep. He stays up through the night, even knitting at one point. When Harry shows up in the morning, Adam promises that he'll be back soon, but at work, he's overly cautious on every single patient. Despite wanting to CT a patient he believes has severe abdominal pain, Lockhart and his assistant Julian want to send her home. So Adam decides to let her stay the night as a sort of middle ground compromise. Mrs. Winnicka is a regular patient on the ward, and there's some pretty funny banter between her and Adam when he heads in to see her. While this is going on, Shruti comes under fire from the other nurses who question what she's doing. She covers for Adam, but it's clear she's under a lot of stress too. That night, Adam ends up going for dinner with Greg and his partner. Despite them not wanting to find out the sex of their baby, Adam slips up and reveals that she's beautiful. It turns out this was intentional, as Adam admits later on to Harry that he's jealous of them and intentionally ruined their night. He also refuses to talk to Harry about how he feels and what's going on too, causing a rift between them. The next day, Adam is berated by Lockhart's crony, Julian, for keeping the patient with abdominal pain on the ward. He's sent her home and stresses the importance of following directions. Adam is stressed and eventually heads outside the hospital for some air and a cigarette. Whilst there, Adam manages to spot a patient in a lot of discomfort and makes the right call, bringing her into the theater. Does it make up for a whole bunch of incidents and bad calls all day? Well, that's for Mr. Lockhart to decide. Adam is brought into Lockhart's office after all this, where he has a massive wall full of baby pictures behind him. Unfortunately, Lockhart has bad news. Erica, the patient with the 25-week C-section, has decided to lodge a complaint. At home, Harry tries to encourage Adam to open up and tell him what's going on, but instead he asks Harry to marry him. No, he replies in confusion. Episode 3 of This Is Going to Hurt begins with Adam showing up late to the theater. The actual theater though, not the operating one. Things are awkward, especially when he's torn between his mum and Harry. She's not exactly happy about his tardiness and Harry isn't happy about Adam suddenly declaring they're in a relationship, believing there should be a better time to break the news. So naturally, the whole evening is super awkward between them. Meanwhile, Shruti gets talking to Ben at work, who invites her out for a pizza. It's a really cute moment, one that essentially serves as the calm before the storm. Why? Well, it turns out they've got a ministerial visit coming up, and as such, Lockhart has organized the troops to make the place ship-shape and looking as best it can be. Between faulty alarms, broken computers and no end of issues, the ward are obviously in trouble. Adam heads off to visit Mrs. Winnicka, who ends up having a prolapse. He helps her out, but a bigger problem is afoot in the labor ward. It turns out the stickers on the front of a patient called Anna's form are a warning of domestic abuse. When Anna is questioned in private, she shrugs it off and claims her son Ernie just loves stickers. Shruti isn't sure, though, and eventually learns that her partner, Angus, has been abusive to her. Bruises up her elbow prove as much, but apparently it's just been since she was pregnant. Meanwhile, there's drama in one of the rooms as Tracy pulls the emergency cord and ends up losing some of the roof along with it. Given the alarm issue, it turns out Adam asked one of the workmen to help out, and he's definitely done that by breaking it completely. Whoops, Tracy has enough and decides to use the water birth room, the one reserved for the minister visit. While this is going on, Adam heads out for dinner with his unbearable mother. She's very uppity and Adam is quick to point out once more to her that he's gay. Still, his mother continues on and even calls it an outburst and something that will pass. Eventually Adam blurts out that they're engaged as a way to finally let his mum see sense. The next day, Adam's mum rings and Harry, who's not exactly happy about this lie. When Adam hangs up on her, he reassures his partner this was the only way to make his mother take them seriously. Adam shows up at work wearing a suit for the minister's visit, but immediately ends up with blood all over him while dealing with a patient. Not only that, he also has to call in a time of death for Mrs. Winnicka straight after. It hits him pretty hard too, and with several tears running down his face, he asks her not to haunt him. There's a pretty nasty moment late on, though, when Angus returns to see Anna. He grabs Shruti and tells her to hurry up and do her tests. Leaving the spots on the front of the door, Shruti manages to save everything from escalating any further as Adam and then security arrive to calm the situation down. In the aftermath of this, Anna refuses to press charges, and it all comes crashing down for Shruti, who decides to rain check on going for her date with Ben. The stresses of the day have been too much. As the episode closes out, Adam takes Harry out to Winnicka's funeral, but this time, Harry changes his mind and decides they should get married after. Episode 4 of This Is Going to Hurt starts with all our characters preparing for another day on the ward. The juxtaposition between Lockhart's fancy car and Adam's beaten-up ride is certainly an amusing, but somewhat depressing, tidbit. When Adam and Shruti arrive at Lockhart's office, Erica's complaint has forced him to reconsider taking the blame for Adam's mishap, and instead he throws Adam under the bus. The thing is, Adam has already submitted his statement about Lockhart agreeing to send her home, putting Shruti in a difficult position. That hits her hard too, as she heads into the toilets and ends up in a pretty teary conversation with her mum on the phone. This situation is made all the worse when Adam admits he won't withdraw his statement, and that puts her in a difficult position as her career is on the line as well. On the labor ward, Tracy is off doing training over the right lingo to use with patients, see clients, while Vicky Houghton takes control of the ward. It doesn't take long for her to force Adam down to A&E, while Shruti is left to deliver the triplets. Adam doesn't go though, and instead sneaks in to see Erica and the baby, trying to convince her to withdraw the complaint. He points out that no other nurses have seen her baby yet, because they're worried she'll put a complaint in against them as well. That's obviously not going to go well, and Adam hightails it out before things can escalate as Erica's sister shows up. It doesn't take long for her to show up and berate Adam for making things worse. After Shruti delivers the triplets, things take a nasty turn when a patient shows up in A&E and needs an emergency birth. Adam is there to deliver the baby, but this brings back nasty memories of what happened with Erica. Thankfully the baby makes it, as Adam uses his quick thinking to save the mum too. All of this is done in view of Erica's sister too, who sees the whole incident play out. In doing so, she drops the whole case. That night, Adam shows up when scheduled with Harry at the bar. The pair exchange rings, with Harry's compressed penny certainly bringing a bit of concern from Adam. When they head to a gay bar together, Adam finds himself completely out of his comfort zone, in the midst of a big party with Harry's friends, PJ and Kenzie. Eventually though, the pair head outside and end up dancing at the front of the club together. Meanwhile, Shruti heads out for a dinner with Vicky, who talks straight after hearing out Shruti's concerns. She admits the job doesn't get any easier, and she needs to ask if this job is really for her, and whether she can hack it. Episode 5 of This Is Going to Hurt begins with Adam sorting out his guest list for his engagement party. While he rings around, Adam continues to work at the hospital. Shruti is still there too, growing ever more frustrated with her studying and long hours on the labor ward. Her exam is on the horizon, and she's clearly stressed, especially when she lashes out at Tracy. She's not the only one stressed. Adam continues to worry about the impending complaint. Despite Erica claiming she withdrew it, this one is anonymous, and it seems the situation is not over just yet. When Adam receives a call from Nina at the Medical Protection Union, it seems like the complaint was actually lodged from a colleague rather than a patient. But who? Adam continues to try and work between these phone calls, desperate to bring up the numbers for his party, but mostly falling on a rabble of no thank yous. Although, ironically, Julian of all people agrees to show up that night. Well, that was unexpected. Elsewhere, Adam ends up with a particularly vulnerable patient, a 19-year-old that's tried to perform cosmetic surgery on her vulva. And predictably, it's gone horribly wrong. The psych evaluator on call is completely overwhelmed too, with numerous cases to work through. She agrees to see her for a minute, but when is still unknown. And that one turns into never, when the patient discharges herself. Elsewhere, Shruti teams up with Vicky to try and work through the overwhelming number of patients. Shruti unfortunately mishandles a case involving a couple who have lost their baby, speaking nonchalantly and robotically about their situation. In fact, she tells the couple that their baby is just a bunch of cells. Vicky thankfully covers for her, but it's clear Shruti is going through just as much. Adam eventually shows up at his engagement party, still spinning out from the stresses of work. Adam's parents are there too, along with the two Tracys, and also Shruti and Ben too. Not only that, Julian also shows up too, and he meets Harry, immediately taken aback when he realizes Adam is gay. Everything kicks off in the middle of the engagement party. Shruti mentions the GMC complaint, which Adam deduces she's called in. As he calls her out for being a terrible doctor, Tracy suddenly speaks up and admits she's the one who actually called in the complaint. When Adam rushes out, a bewildered Harry is taken aback when a drunk Shruti reveals everything about the complaint and how he's likely going to get struck off. Outside, Tracy confronts Adam and calls him out for the tattoo, disconnecting the alarm and bullying Erica into dropping her complaint. It's a valid criticism and something that he finally realizes. With everything falling apart, Harry and Adam's relationship hangs in the balance. Episode 6 of This Is Going to Hurt begins with Shruti bumping into the husband of the triplets she delivered earlier in the season. He's working behind the deli counter at the supermarket. It seems Shruti can't escape from work even if she wants to. Eventually she abandons her cart and heads home. Meanwhile, Adam ends up staying at Greg and Emma's place, but of course she's not exactly happy about his mannerisms. It's been over 34 days and tensions are high. Adam is saving up for a deposit on a flat, and in order to do that he's accepted a gig at a private hospital. He also doesn't have a date for his tribunal yet either, which continues to hang over him like a black cloud. It's a very different environment too, with a ridiculous amount of luxuries and only one patient to deal with per nurse. This is a direct juxtaposition to Shruti at the NHS-funded hospital, with broken vending machines, unenthusiastic trainees and juggling multiple patients. Shruti is the only doctor on call, and her trainee, Al, is less than knowledgeable. Even worse, he ends up fainting at the sight of blood. Shruti has come a long way and working the ward has certainly toughened her up. She's not in the mood to deal with trainees, and despite actually testing his knowledge, his constant jokes and quips only work to wind her up and cause her to become more impatient. There is a really nice moment here though with a patient that mentions Shruti is a great doctor and that the NHS are lucky to have her. The thing is, that's a drop in the well for what's otherwise an overwhelming amount of stress and impatient, unhappy patients for her to deal with. One of those patients happens to be a woman named Brianna. Shruti pulls some strings to get her a scan after hours, where she notices a lot of blood in her abdomen. This means her pregnancy is ectopic, and it's also ruptured too. With her life hanging in the balance, Al is tasked with phoning the theater and Vicky to come in and help, while Shruti is left with doing surgery. While this is going on, we cut across to find Adam delivering his patient's baby. Everything starts off okay, but when she begins losing a good deal of blood, Adam is forced to earn his money as he scrambles for the midwives to rally around him and help try and save Kathleen's life. The thing is, the private hospital is not equipped to deal with this emergency, given there's not enough blood stock there. So as fate would have it, the aforementioned new patient showing up at the hospital happens to be Adam's private patient, Kathleen. This really puts into perspective the divide between the rich and poor, which has been at the forefront of this chapter. As night turns to day, Shruti actually ends up passing her exams, but she's completely nonchalant toward Adam, who tries to talk to her, but to no avail. She's understandably still unhappy with him, but uses the pretenses that she's tired. When Adam shows up at work the next day, the place is a mess, and all the staff are distraught. So what's happened? Well, it turns out after her shift, Shruti emptied her locker. As police show up at her parents' door, the worst thing has happened. Shruti is dead. Episode 7 of This Is Going to Hurt begins 2 months after the traumatic events that took Shruti's life. The labor ward is packed, and the ghosts of Shruti continue to hang over Adam. Even worse, her replacement, Al, isn't exactly up to scratch right now. What happens at Shruti's memorial? Still, it's Shruti's memorial that comes into focus here, and they're going to remember her life by planting an oak tree outside. As the parents gush over how much she loves being a doctor, Vicky speaks up next and talks about how Shruti was suffering from depression. Adam wants there to be an investigation into the horrific conditions they're all working in, but for now it's back to work and the constant underfunded circus they're stuck with. In the wake of all this, Adam is sidetracked by Lockhart, who quizzes him on the upcoming tribunal. Although he's the one who weaseled out of taking the fall, Lockhart encourages Adam to play the system, so he stays on as a doctor. Specifically, he encourages Adam to turn the narrative around and claim that Shruti was the one who mistakenly told him about Lockhart. It's a blatant lie, but according to Lockhart, it's a way to keep his job and only let one domino fall. Does Adam manage to keep his job? With his ditzy lawyer by his side, acting unprofessionally, Adam shows up at his tribunal and talks about Shruti, but does he follow Lockhart's advice? All will be revealed. Either way, Adam manages to keep his job. Needing someone to talk to, Adam ends up meeting Harry and clearly feels guilty, struggling with his own emotions and sobbing at the table. Realizing he needs someone by his side, rather than being stuck alone, he invites Harry along to join as a temporary +1 to Greg and Emma's wedding. Back at the hospital, it's time for Misty to leave. Erica is there with a gift for Adam, a cup-reading world's best doctor. She also has one for Shruti, but of course, that feels like salt in the wound. Before Adam can elaborate though, he's called away by an emergency. It's touch and go for a while, but Adam manages to save the patient. However, he also sees Al sobbing in the changing room. Remembering the harsh grilling he gave Shruti, Adam wheels back his harsh critiques and instead tries a softer approach. He also gives Al the afternoon off to compose himself. In doing so, he takes Shruti's name tag from her locker and places it in his wallet. It's a symbolic act, one to remember her by, and also to try and take some lessons from the tragic loss of her life. Does Harry shows up at Greg and Emma's wedding? At Greg and Emma's wedding, Harry is a no-show. At least to begin with anyway. In his absence, Harry takes Emma's aside and hands over a sonic aid, his wedding gift for her to help hear the baby's heartbeat, and put her mind at ease for the next few weeks. At least until she gives birth anyway. It's her second best present, the Maserati from Greg being the first, and a nice way to put water under the bridge for their trying relationship over the past few episodes. Harry does eventually show up and Adam gets talking about their future. Interestingly, it also puts into focus what happened at the tribunal. Remember when we all thought Adam threw Shruti under the bus to save his skin? Well, the truth is, that's not what actually happened. Adam honored Shruti's life, pointing out the overwhelming amount of stress she was dealing with and how she was forced to work in a broken system. It turns out one medical professional takes their own life every 3 weeks. It's a shocking statistic and something that throws the mental health of doctors, nurses and all the other health professionals into question. Do Adam and Harry get back together? Now, while Adam talks to Harry about this, the pair end up swimming together in the lake. Adam wants to make a go of it and even contemplates giving up being a doctor so he can keep Harry. He can do it, though, when it comes down to it, and as the pair talk they embrace one another. Now, it's worth bearing in mind that water is generally synonymous with emotion, and with them both half submerged, it's a way of showing that they're both overwhelmed by their own emotions while navigating their difficult work-life balance. This scene also works to show how important a support system actually is when it comes to working for the NHS. For Shruti, she was living alone in a small apartment, and her depression slowly ate away at her until it ended in heartbreak. For Adam, he had Harry to fall back on, and managed to at least try to get away from it all, despite being haunted by the memories of his tribunal, Shruti, and Erica. In the end, Adam realizes how important Harry is to his life, but also that he wants to be a doctor, and can't give that up. It would seem that they're going to try and get back together, but it's left suitably ambiguous. How does this is going to hurt end? As the episode closes out, we cut back to Adam as he heads to the hospital. While waiting to get a parking ticket, something criminally overlooked. NHS workers should not have to pay for parking. He helps a pregnant woman who's ready to give birth. However, in the time that he's gone, he ends up getting a penalty notice. Go figure. The ending of last episode. So the final episode of This Is Going to Hurt throws shade at the whole broken system of the NHS. Not only underfunded, but also criminally overlooked. When it comes to mental health, this show does an amazing job of depicting the harsh realities of being a doctor, as well as all the jumping through hoops and trauma that comes with that. There's been some really amazing moments across the season, and the topical and timely manner that this show has come out speaks volumes about how broken the system is that it can resonate so strongly. There's certainly room for a second season, but largely this ends everything with a solid, satisfying conclusion that rounds out this wonderful show with a great finale.